Here's a sneak peek from today's episode.
I don't want people to get caught up on press coverage. I want them to really be focused on what could help close a deal. And so that's where the announcement, I think, is more valuable than ever, quite honestly.
Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Dan. Dan, welcome to the show.
Ben, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Dan, I'm excited for this conversation. Like I was saying before, I don't think we've ever dedicated an entire episode to this subject. So I'm really fascinated to dive in. But before we do that, let's get to know you, your background, and all that fun stuff.
Sure. So I am a B2B comms person. I spent the first part of my career on the B2B agency side, moved in-house like most rational people do. And my job really has been public relations, analyst relations, social media, content, et cetera. Anything that encompasses integrated communications, typically for global companies in the B2B space.
I love it. Very cool. So Dan, for all of our guests, they can maybe guess it. We're going to talk about the press release and how press releases are not dead. I'm not going to lie. It's been a minute since I've sent one. Why should we maybe still pay attention to the press release? Like what's that all about? And actually, and this may be shocking, but we probably do have some members of our audience that are young enough that they've never actually read a press release. So maybe we start there. Dan, what is a press release? And then let's dive into maybe why you should start using it.
Press releases should be called announcements because they're not geared exclusively or entirely for the media. From an in-house perspective, they are geared to customers and prospects. They're geared to partners. They're geared to a lot of different external audiences. I get that some PR agency people will lament the fact that press releases aren't going to have the interest of reporters, and that's fair criticism. But these other audiences are core. And from an in-house perspective, what I'm trying to do is supply my sales colleagues and my field marketing colleagues with assets that they can bring to their customers and their prospects. So I don't think that the press release, or in this case, the announcement, is dead, nor should it be dead. It should be alive and flourishing because at the end of the day, a lot of these external audiences are going to view this asset as something that is official. Whereas if it's a blog post, which I do think is very important, I think it's important to convey thought leadership, et cetera. The idea of having this other asset, this announcement that really does have the look and feel of something that's formal, is going to carry weight with these audiences. And once again, those guys, those people on the ground need these assets. It's just going to help them out. So I think that they are alive and kicking. In this case, press releases, media alerts, announcements, whatever you want to call them. But without them, you're missing something. And you meaning just, the comms team. They are a tactic, but they're a much more important tactic than I think people are giving them credit for.
Oh, I love that. So I love the points that there's a certain amount of authority behind a press release. It shows that this is a special announcement. It's worth putting some money behind. It is meant to be distributed as an official release and a media notification and all that kind of fun stuff. I absolutely love that. What are you noticing for distribution? There's these time-tested, 2 or 3 outlets where you go on, you write your press release and distribute it. Do you have any other recommendations for when you actually publish this to get it out in front of prospects and customers and the media so people take note and maybe kind of syndicate it a little bit?
Yeah, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. Unless the announcement is so material, really, I don't understand embargoes. I think embargoes are totally superfluous, and I tell this to every agency person I've ever worked with. Don't hold an announcement or a release for the day of the announcement. That makes no sense at all. And the same goes for customers and prospects. At the end of the day, the announcement itself, we want to make, and there are different kinds of announcements, but in this case, let's say it's a media announcement, not a media, but rather a meaty announcement that's focused on some significant new capability. Could be a first best only. Why wait until the announcement crosses a wire to disseminate it, to distribute it? There's no reason to at all. You can send it as a courtesy beforehand, let them know that it's going to go out over the wire. If you go with a wire distribution, or let them know when it's going to be published to the website or to LinkedIn, but share the news. I mean, I think that, unless you and your agency partners have some kind of strategy in place where you're going to work on some kind of exclusive, and in this case, it better be really significant news, because otherwise, this is where I vehemently agree with the PR agency people. An exclusive is merited if the news is significant. Now, that said, in-house, a lot of people would view this aforementioned product news as being significant, but I think those of us who've been around long enough know that it's significant to certain audiences. And so we want to get it out to those audiences early. We don't want it to languish. We want to have follow-ups. And so that's why we develop strategies, communication strategies for sales and for marketing and for others within the organization to implement when they're sharing this news. Because it's not like, hey, we're announcing this next week, or we just announced this. There's got to be something more to it. And that's key. That is very important from a news perspective, from a media perspective. I'm for agencies employing some kind of exclusive strategy if they think that it's going to merit something. Otherwise, I'm looking for some coverage, but at the end of the day, what's a lot more important is when the field can say, hey, we have a hot lead as a result of this news, because that means that what I'm creating, what my team is creating, is actually really benefiting the bottom line, and it's helping out. If we can contribute to revenue, awesome. If we can contribute to revenue by way of press coverage, awesome. As long as it's equated back to what we're doing, fantastic. But I don't really care how we get there. If the salesperson is sending it directly to the customer or the prospect, or if the customer or prospect is reading it in a publication, as long as, their eyes on it and it can generate some kind of interest, a demo, something more, some kind of sales meeting, then awesome. Then I think that we've done our job.
I love that. Very cool. So I have two follow-up questions on the two different distributions. So number one is you talked about revenue generating efforts. And I think that that's so important for every marketer to say, what are the revenue effects of the time and the campaigns and the efforts I'm putting into anything that I'm doing? When it comes to lead generation, how are you using press releases to kind of get, like you said, they're reading it on a distribution site and hopefully drawing them in and getting them interested? And then on the other hand, how are you enabling the sales team to utilize those to help close that business? I guess, how are you kind of working at those two different layers of the funnel?
Sure. So I guess the first part, in terms of measuring, a lot of it's going to be dependent on the sales team inputting information in Salesforce. That's going to help me out, because in most instances, not in most instances, actually, salespeople are awesome. But in some instances, salespeople are really busy and they're not inputting information into Salesforce or into whatever program. And so we're not necessarily seeing it from a marketing/communications perspective. On the other hand, there's like a big process in place. What I like to do, and hopefully others do as well, we have a pipeline. And so I'm aligned with sales leadership. I'm aligned with regional marketing leadership on when we're thinking of popping some kind of news. We want to make sure it's aligned to what the field is doing. If we have that alignment, it's good. We can time things. So if it's, let's say, a customer win announcement, and let's say it's specific to a geography or it's specific to a vertical, and there's some kind of campaign that is happening concurrently, we can align that announcement much more effectively. So if we're, once we have this pipeline of announcements, we're then arming the team who is really focused on, this quarter it's a retail push, or this quarter it's an APAC push. And so we're giving them the relevant news that they can then send out. And it could be supplemental, it could be complementary. It doesn't really matter, but alignment is key. And I should have mentioned that earlier on, that, when there's a lot of thought that goes into announcements in terms of timing, especially. And it really is important. It's mutually beneficial to make sure that the timing aligns with what sales and what marketing wants and what they're doing.
I
Without
love
that,
that.
you're just throwing something out there.
I
You
love
need that
that.
alignment.
That's so cool. Like, I think that's a step that we often forget with the press release is, can I coordinate with those internal teams before? And like you said, there's no reason to keep this secretive. hey,
Yeah.
we're going to publish this announcement in the upcoming weeks. What do you want included? What can I do to help you actually take advantage of this? And how can we get aligned? I love that. So I want to shift gears just slightly because I feel
Yeah.
like it would be a waste of this podcast time if I don't ask you this question. Any recommendations for writing press releases? There is like a formula that everyone follows when they write these press releases. Do you follow that formula? What do you recommend? What about call to actions? Like any tips or tricks or ideas on how to actually craft the press release itself?
I love call to actions. I think all announcements should have calls to action. I think when it comes to any announcement, I personally want to have a third party quote, a third party endorsement slash testimonial. Theoretically, that's an unbiased perspective. When you're quoting executives within the organization, there's a bias, obviously. If it's a product announcement, if it's a customer announcement, a new win, a go live momentum, you want to be able to list those customers. If it's product, if it's beta, if it's demonstrable alpha, if it's GA, it doesn't really matter. If you can have that testimonial, even if it's just something that's forward looking, broad based, vague, that's fine. That's going to give it more credibility. So I'm always looking for, and this is where I'm bugging, and I'm trying not to because I really do love my colleagues in customer success more than anything, but I'm bugging them to identify customers we can target for a quote. I'll draft the quote. I prefer drafting quotes for everyone. I prefer writing the releases on my own just because I know the tone of voice. But I think having that third party quote is key. It could be an analyst as well. In many instances, analysts aren't going to, you know, overtly endorse the vendor. If an analyst quote is in there, it's a tacit endorsement, which is something, but they're not going to say, oh, what this company is doing is redefining blah, blah, blah. It's not that. It's more like, hey, there's a real issue happening, and this is one of the companies that's addressing it. Like if we could get something akin to that, that would be huge, a big ask. But if you get the customer to agree to a quote that's going to validate what you're saying, that's awesome. If you can't get the customer, I go down the list. So it's basically customer number 1, partner number 2, analyst number 3. And, it's subjective from where I'm coming from, but I think that, having that third party testimonial, and in this case, we're talking about a high level quote, 2 sentences, that's going to help validate the announcement. The announcement itself, you want to have something that's very compelling and very concise from a headline perspective. Maybe you have a subhead. You need a really catchy, concise first paragraph. I mean, the release itself needs to be concise. To me, I'm a fan of bullets. I think bullets have proven very effective, certainly in B2B. I can't speak for B2C, but from a B2B perspective, if we can really focus on what those key features benefits are. If it's a first best only, awesome. If it's a fast follower, that's fine. If we're a Luddite, well, I don't want to announce something. I'd rather just have a piece of thought leadership that we can turn into a blog post or maybe a contributed article. But from an announcement perspective, concise, got to be super catchy, ideally with some kind of third party quote just to help the credibility.
I love that. So a couple other questions. What about imagery? Should that always be included, not included? What's your recommendation there?
I think from a web perspective, from a website perspective, yes. If you have a decent brand / web team, can't hurt at all. If you're issuing it over a wire, well, it's basically just dollars and cents. I don't know how effective it is to add in imagery if you're issuing it over a wire. But from a website, I would. I mean, I think that aesthetics do sell. Anything that's eye catching is going to help out. Anything that's static, that's just text, isn't going to be as effective. I mean, we see that when we test LinkedIn. I mean, we know that certain images are going to increase engagement from a LinkedIn perspective. And I think it could do the same when you're drawing visitors back to your site. So that kind of image could be good. It could be a compelling screen grab if it's product. It could be, I mean, if it's a really cool customer with a very recognizable brand, I mean, I would do everything in my power to get my sales colleagues to get the customer to agree to logo usage. Logo usage can be very, very impactful when it comes to announcements, when it comes to any asset, if it's a recognizable brand. And, when it comes to customers themselves, I mean, and I'm spending quite a bit of time on the customer component, but when I think of announcements from a B2B perspective, you always want to be touting momentum and growth. And so that's where customers come into play. And if you have some compelling logos that you can affix to an announcement or somewhere on a news page, I think you're foolish not to go that route. But
I
you
love
do
that.
need their consent. And that's
Yeah.
where, so I glossed over this, but with sales and customer success, that's where they're going to need to get the written consent of the customer, because if it's a brand name, obviously they're going to have numerous levels of review and approval. But if you can get that logo usage, then I think that's pretty compelling.
That's amazing. I love that. Well, Dan, we're almost out of time. So to wrap this up, and it's hard to kind of wrap all of your experience and all these years into just a 15-minute episode, but any last pieces of advice for anyone who is reinvigorated with this concept of press releases or announcements? Any other recommendations that you feel like the audience should hear?
I mean, from a B2B perspective, always work with sales, because they might be sitting on some pieces of information that they wouldn't necessarily think of as newsworthy, but they could be. And they could be from a lead gen, from a demand gen perspective. I don't want people to get caught up on press coverage. I want them to really be focused on what could help close a deal. And so that's where the announcement, I think, is more valuable than ever, quite honestly.
I love it. Dan, well, I'm more excited for press releases than I have been in a long time. This is
Hey,
amazing.
thanks, Ben. That makes me happy.
And I'm sure the audience is going to be excited too. If anyone wants to reach out and connect with you online, how and where can they find you?
I mean, they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm an open book. I am responsive. If people have questions, by all means, don't hesitate. And it's easy.
Perfect.
I mean, even though I'm wearing a hat right now, I'm a bald guy with glasses, like many other Dans. But yeah, I'm easy to find.
I love it. Perfect. And for anyone listening, we will link to Dan's profile in the show notes below. Dan, thank you again for your insights today. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben. Anytime. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.